Hello everybody, thanks for tuning into this webinar, and today I have the very great pleasure of talking with you about how to protect your business from the negative buzz that's out there, how to manage your online reputation. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get started. Now, it's time to face the harsh reality. People talk online about their experiences with local businesses, and as you can see, they can be really unsparing, savage even in their criticism. Now, on this slide, you see a one-star review of a restaurant in Denver, Colorado in the United States. Now, this one is actually less hostile than some of the others that I was considering showing you, but it's still pretty bad. Now, imagine if somebody took to the web and told the entire world to avoid your business. Now, here's another one-star review from a Google Places page with the classic all capitals, a good indication that this person was pretty annoyed when he wrote this. And also notice in the bottom of the review, 3 out of 3 people actually found it helpful. Now that right there in a nutshell is why reputation management and marketing is so important, and I'll explain further in a moment. And here's the really scary part. Most small businesses have absolutely no idea what people are saying about them online. They aren't monitoring the important directories and review sites. They're not managing the conversation, and they aren't using new social media platforms to promote their good name. All of which means that any and all negative reviews and brand damaging complaints are going unanswered and unaddressed. Here's a maxim that most of us understand intuitively. You know, it takes forever to build a good reputation, but only a second to destroy it. And I think it's worth repeating because, you know, if anything, the stakes have become so much greater in the information age. In our hyper-connected world, news travels fast and far. Good news, bad news, and everything in between. And that news doesn't necessarily vanish into the ether after a few days. No, instead, it gets stored on a server somewhere where it's just a Google search away. So when I say the stakes have, become greater, here's an illustration of what I'm talking about. Damage to your reputation isn't an abstract thing. It really does have real effects on your balance sheet. Now, in November 2011, the Harvard Business Review published a study on the impact of online reviews of local restaurants. Now, this is for local restaurants, but the principle applies right across the board, irrespective of the industry. Now, the authors of the study found that a difference of just 1 star in the average rating of the establishment led to a difference in revenues of between 5 to 9%. Now, just think about that for a second. I mean, that's a significant impact on a business, no matter what its size. So you might be wondering, why do online complaints matter so much? How could just a 1-star rating have such an outsized impact on my business's revenue? And here's a simple answer. People put a hell of a lot of trust in their social networks. 90% trust online recommendations from people they know. But what's more, people put a lot of trust in total strangers. Almost 3/4 will trust reviews from people they haven't even met. So, I mean, that's a great double-edged sword of the internet. Positive word of mouth can be like rocket fuel for a business, propelling it into the stratosphere ahead of its competitors. But on the other hand, on the other side, negative word of mouth can be like filling your petrol tank with lard. And here's the rub. The web has a long memory. As I mentioned earlier, Google never forgets, which means that negative reviews can haunt you for a very long time if you're reckless with your reputation. Okay, now, I mean, I'll just stop here. I mean, this presentation is not about scaring you. Well, okay, it is partly about that, but it's mostly about giving you some guidance in terms of how you can protect the delicate and scarce resource that's your online reputation. I mean, not surprisingly, an entirely new field has emerged with reputation issues arising from our wired age. It's called online reputation management and marketing, and it's a mixture of old-fashioned PR principles and newfangled internet marketing techniques like search engine optimization and social media marketing. And it's as much more about being proactive in protecting your reputation as it is about being reactive when it's threatened. So let's drill down further into this concept. Now, here are some of the key components that comprise online reputation management and marketing, or as it's sometimes called ORM. Now, firstly, ORM is about creating standard operating procedures that aim to prevent mishaps and minimize them if they do occur. And secondly, a huge part of this process is ongoing promotion and content creation. It's not too much of a stretch to say that, in the information age, every business has become a publisher of some kind or another, or perhaps a storyteller is perhaps a better metaphor. A business is responsible for telling a story about their brand. This story doesn't end until the business closes its doors. So it's imperative that you shape and manage your story. Now, it's not possible to totally control the narrative, quite clearly, but you've got to try your best to keep it on the right trajectory. Thirdly, part and parcel of telling your story is maintaining an active role on the web. And today that means participating in the social web. Now, I'm talking about Facebook primarily, but also Twitter and YouTube and LinkedIn and other channels that make sense for your industry or niche. And fourthly, building relationships is another important element of online reputation management and marketing. It can be as basic as providing a good service, but it's also about maintaining an ongoing dialogue with your market. And what's more, it's about being, it's absolutely vital to build relationships with key influencers in your niche, not just your customers, but your suppliers, colleagues, competitors, and local media outlets. Now, the final element of online reputation management and marketing is reactive, i.e., how do you deal with negative buzz that threatens to derail your brand? Now, you'll note that it's a small piece of the overall ORM puzzle. Many people think online reputation management and marketing is all about fixing your SEO problem or getting a bad review removed from a directory. In reality, reputation management and marketing is about taking proactive steps so that you avoid these types of issues in the first place. So here's a key question to address upfront. Who needs to engage in ORM? Well, the short answer is absolutely everyone. People are talking about you online. Keeping your head in the sand isn't a viable strategy. It's a terrible strategy, actually. Every organization, indeed every individual, has got to pay attention and proactively manage their brand. Now, of course, there are some businesses that rely on their reputation more than most, like those in the food service and hospitality industries. And likewise, those who provide professional services such as lawyers and accountants, they live and die by their reputation. So now, what I'd like to do is just dive into the specifics of online reputation management and marketing, which can be classified into three areas: monitoring, managing, and promoting. So let's start with monitoring. Monitoring is all about listening to your market, keeping your ear to the ground, and that means knowing what's being said on social media sites like Twitter and Facebook, on blogs, social results pages, message boards, forums, directories like Google Places, Foursquare and Yelp, and lastly, those key influencers present in your niche. Every industry has them, and they command a hell of a lot of authority. Now, I want to recommend some great free tools that will help you effectively monitor the online landscape. Now, they should ideally be in every small business's toolbox. Now, with Google Alerts, you can get email updates on the relevant Google results through the web, news, etc. on your name, company, or industry keywords. Every business should have an alert for their company name. there's absolutely no excuse not to have one or several of these. I mean, they only take 2 minutes to set up at most. Social mention. This is a really, really neat tool. Basically, it does what Google Alerts does, but for social media. TweetDeck is an enormously helpful tool for keeping tabs on the conversation happening on Twitter. And finally, you should definitely have an RSS reader to keep up on all the important blogs, forums, and media outlets that cover your industry. An RSS reader is a great way to aggregate the content from all of the sites that you read on a regular basis in one place, so you don't have to actually bounce from site to site to get the latest news. I suggest Google Reader. It's probably the most popular and easiest to use of all of them, and best of all, it's free. Now here are a couple of screenshots, one from Google Alerts and another from Social Mention. Now, the second pillar of online reputation management is a little trickier. It's managing the conversation. Now, this piece encompasses the majority of ORM. Now, there are a lot of things that fall under this category, but I'll just run through a few of them here. Number one, claim your listings. Now, what I mean by this is, claim all public listings of your business on local directories, starting with the most important, which is Google Places. Now, by claiming your listing, you can exercise more control over what gets published under your name. 2, respond to complaints. Now, this one seems obvious, right? But here's the thing, responding to complaints is a bit of an art, and it's something to practice and get really, really good at. And I do mean that quite seriously. 3, encourage positive reviews. Now, one of the best ways to strengthen your reputation and make it less vulnerable to stray negative comments is to build up a stockpile of evidence that supports your good name. Now, in practice, that means cultivating relationships with your customers and encouraging them to say nice things about your company, your staff, and your products. Now, some of you might not be entirely sure what the phrase claim your listings actually means, so I'll take a second to explain. Now, on this slide, you'll see an example of an unclaimed Google Places listing. The Google Places is one of many business directories that consumers use to find local merchants and service providers. Now, by claiming your listings across these different directories, not only will your business become more visible, but you'll also have more control over the content and messaging that gets published online. Now, responding to customer complaints and negative reviews is, not surprisingly, a very, very big part of online reputation management and marketing. And tracking and responding to negative reviews is no one's idea of a good time. But here's the thing. It really is effective. And in fact, graceful handling of customer complaints can actually boost your standing in your market and help you develop even more customer loyalty. I really do suggest making it part and parcel of your routine to check the important directories on a regular basis and engage the people who have taken the time to write a review about their experience with your business. Now, this is something that a lot of businesses struggle with, but it's so important to make it standard practice to channel customer enthusiasm and collect testimonials and encourage them to write reviews on directories like Google Places and Yelp, Thompson Local, and so on and so forth. That means conditioning all of your customer-facing employees to collect positive feedback when they hear it, and it means thinking up creative ways to make it easy for your customers to submit feedback. Creating comment cards is one approach that has proven to be very, very effective. Okay. Now, the third pillar of online reputation management is promotion. This is actually the fun part. This is the part that I would imagine most business owners will enjoy. But here's the thing: a lot of businesses are wary of the web and social media in particular because they can't control what's being said. But I'm here to tell you the social web is an amazing, amazing resource for every single business. And, you are missing out if you're not using it to its fullest potential. You really are. You can't, of course, you can't control what's being said on Facebook or Twitter, but here's the good news. You can control what you say about your company, which means that you have the power to influence the conversation. But you've got to get out there and you've got to make your voice heard on a regular basis. Passivity isn't an option anymore, and brief spurts of activity won't do the job either. You really do need to get out there. So what exactly does that mean in practice? Well, it means you've got to give this whole social media thing a try. You really do need to immerse yourself in this. It means you've got to start thinking of your website as something more than just an electronic business card, but as a living, breathing member of your PR team. It means going out of your comfort zone and recording a few YouTube videos so that you rank higher in the search results. It means getting over your reluctance to ask your customers for reviews and testimonials. Now, this may sound like a lot of effort, and I know most small business owners aren't exactly flush with extra time or cash, to say the least. But do keep in mind that virtually everything you do manage and improve your reputation will also help you bring more customers through your door. It will also increase your sales activity, solidify your position in the marketplace, and boost your overall profitability. Yes, it may sound like hard work and it may feel like something which is a little alien, but it is really worth the effort to immerse yourself in this. Now that we've covered some of the key components of online reputation management, I want to take a few minutes to introduce a handful of best practices and guidelines that will benefit every business. So one thing I want to really stress is that online reputation management and marketing is an ongoing process, one that when done correctly is woven into every part of your business, but particularly sales, marketing and customer service. It's not a one-time thing that you can do in response to a crisis. Given the importance of your reputation and its fragility, reputation management should be baked into everything you do as a company. Believe me, you do not want to come up with a reputation management plan when you're in the midst of a panic. As a well-known public relations expert once said, doing PR during a crisis is like eating healthy during a heart attack. What's more, if you make ORM a part and parcel of your business, then you'll be in a much, much better position to avoid crises in the first place. Now here's just one example. Let's say, God forbid, that a thread of negative comments against your company starts to rank high up in the search engines. Now, if you have a content creation process in place, you'll be in a much, much better position to ramp up your publishing efforts and push the hostile comments down the page and out of view. Now, in contrast, if you don't have a process in place, the process of diluting the negative comments will be much, much more laborious and time intensive. So when your business starts to think about reputation management, there will be some hard truths that you'll have to face from time to time. Now, according to reputation expert Daniel Diermeyer of Kellogg School of Management, most reputational challenges do not happen because of some external event or misfortune. Rather, they arise as the direct consequence of company actions. Now, okay, that quote may sound a little opaque, but here's the deal. Sometimes you've got to face some unpleasant realities about your products, your delivery, and your customer service. But facing these truths is the difference between a business that's willing to grow and improve and a business that's destined for stagnation and squandered potential. Now, that may sound harsh, but it's absolutely true. Now, I want to take a brief moment to draw a distinction between owning up to mistakes with honesty and grace versus going through the motions and saying things that you don't actually mean. Now, everyone can spot a false apology a mile away, yet somehow people try to get away with it day in, day out. So here's a quick way to test if your apology is genuine. Does it contain the word if? Now, if your apology contains this word, the likelihood is that you're giving a bad apology. Now, why is it important to know how to apologize? Well, A big part of online reputation management is knowing when and how to fall on your sword. Now, this may sound like it's too simple or too obvious to address in this presentation, but trust me, people and organizations fail at this seemingly simple task every single day. Watch ITV, watch BBC for 20 minutes, and I guarantee you'll see a non-apology. Now, to clarify, I want to add that an apology doesn't have to be an exercise in groveling. 9 times out of 10, that's unnecessary and ineffective. But sincerity is always vital. Sincerity is the key. Now, your business is more than just your livelihood, it's your baby. Moreover, it can feel like an extension of yourself, which is why when somebody says something critical online, it can really sting, and it can feel like a personal slight, can't it? But believe me, bad things happen when you take it personally. I've seen too many cases when emotions get involved and things start to get messy in a public and very unflattering way. Jeremy Stoppelman, co-founder and CEO of Yelp, which is an online directory that I'm sure many of you are familiar with or you've at least visited to find a local restaurant, says, hands down, when I've seen a conflict, it's usually because the business owner is enraged, furious, or personally hurt. Give yourself some time to cool off and engage in a respectful, courteous manner. Now think of every commenter as an investor in your business. Now, by providing their input, positive and negative, they are investing in the success and growth of your business. And also, I want to clarify that online reputation management isn't about engaging every critic, responding to every bad review. Not only is it not a scalable option, doing so can make you look thin-skinned. Not every bad review merits a response, especially the ones that are clearly meant to be inflammatory. Your customers will be able to distinguish legitimate reviewers from the hot-headed comments. In other words, don't waste your time feeding the trolls, so to speak. Okay, my goal with this presentation was to familiarize you with online reputation management and give you some guidance on how to protect your business's good name. This presentation is by no means exhaustive, but I hope that you have a clearer picture now than when you tuned in. Now, since you're all probably pressed for time and potentially reaching your saturation point, I'm going to wrap up here and open things up and take your questions. But before I do, I just want to acknowledge that you may be feeling overwhelmed by all of this online reputation stuff. But just know that you don't need to do everything on your own. We can definitely help you if you need assistance developing a plan or executing a plan that you already have. Just let us know. Now, it looks like we've already got a couple of questions queued up, so we'll start with those. Okay, it looks like our first one is, let's see, what's your position on astroturfing? Now, now that's a good one. It's a good one. Actually, it's a good question to start off with. Okay, let me just explain. Astroturfing refers to writing fake reviews or hiring a third party to write them on your behalf. Now, some people will try to do this in an attempt to dilute bad reviews or push them down the page. My position, I think it's a bad idea. I think it's a really, really bad idea. It's not something I would advocate, and it's certainly not something I would recommend. It's not ethical, for one thing. I think if you trade your integrity, you end up losing so much more in the deal. Also, you can get caught, and then you'll get punished and banned from the site. Now, if that happens on Yelp or Google Plus local, it's a pretty big deal. All of a sudden you lose a huge conduit into your market. And it's just not worth the risk, in my opinion, not least because sites like Yelp and Google are getting really, really savvy about sniffing out fake reviews. So my response to that, just don't do it. Just on so many levels, just do not do it. Now, let's just have a look. The next question is, what's your opinion on Clout? Now, I'm not too familiar with Clout personally, but for those who are even less aware, Clout is a site that basically measures a person's level of online influence. To taking into account things like the number of Twitter followers that they have and Facebook friends and so on and so forth. In a way, it's a pretty unfortunate development, in my opinion. It remains to be seen whether it will really catch on, but I see it as ripe for abuse. You could end up having people use it as a blackmailing tool. Yeah, for example, I have a huge clout score, so give me a free dinner or I'll trash your business on Twitter. That sort of thing. When you think about it, that's a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? But here's another way to look at it. Regardless of your opinion on sites like Clout, the fact is consumers have a lot of power these days. They have these powerful platforms to voice their dissatisfaction, and they can reach a lot of people very, very quickly. But the flip side is also true. Positive word of mouth can really light up your business overnight. Okay, so let me just have a look. I'm just going to check I can see that we're coming up now to our allotted time. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Thank you for the questions that came through. Thank you for joining me here today. And again, if you'd like any assistance putting these tips and strategies into action, we'd love to help. And do please get in touch. And once again, thank you and bye-bye.